Who are you? Who do you think is your ideal customer? What does that mean that you're doing day to day? Can you remember how you got your first customer? Welcome to the JOD Pod, a micro podcast where we interview CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs, authors, and coaches. Today we are joined by Danny Greeves, the founder of the Speak Up, Stand Out Accelerator program. Great to have you with us today, Danny.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm inspired to be here.
Fantastic. So for those of us who don't know who Danny Greeves is, who are you?
I am technically described as a confidence and self-expression coach. I essentially help people learn how their minds work so they can move towards what it is they love doing.
Fantastic. And so what does that mean that you're doing day to day?
I run a combination of one-to-one consults. There are some people who just really like that one-to-one attention, and actually there's blocks that they want to overcome. The majority of the time I'm actually working in the Speak Up, Stand Out Accelerator, which is like a community training hybrid. So it's an online platform, but then a live environment, because I love people being present live and actually speaking and expressing themselves.
Fantastic. I think that's so important because you see a lot of programs that are very digital and don't have that live element. And if you're trying to learn this kind of skill, it's really important that you actually have that interaction with a live human being.
Yeah, it needs to be live. I mean, over the last 12 months, it's live and online. But that opportunity to just be in the moment and be present and just let things come out as they do, I think that's really, really important in terms of building the skill set and actually giving you the experience to let you know, yeah, you can do it. And all it takes is practice.
Fantastic. Well, Danny, when did you first realise that you wanted to run your own business, be an entrepreneur?
It was in 2014. So my background is as a physiotherapist. And when I was younger, I literally had the unconscious plan that I was just going to be in the NHS and I was going to be working till I was 60, and that was kind of me set. I had an opportunity to move to a private physio company in sort of 2014, and then I got a taste of actually being self-employed. And there were some challenges in the company in terms of the morale and basically how everyone felt. And it was then that I decided, actually, I can do this, but I'd like to do it my own way. So that's kind of the ignition, if you like.
The spark to get you started.
The spark.
Yeah, the spark.
That's the one.
Awesome. And so when you thought about that and you wanted to start your own company, I think one of the biggest hurdles people have is when they get to get their first customer. Can you remember how you got your first customer?
Referrals. So that was definitely, I can totally agree with you there, it was one of the biggest concerns and problems. I think what I did do was I planned out a transitional move. Although I wanted to just change and start my own business, I realized that probably I didn't have the marketing and advertising skills to do that. So I transitioned, and a lot of my early customers were referrals from either my previous work or from training that I'd been on. And it was only after that got up and running that I started to branch out a little bit.
That's interesting. So you put in a plan about how you're actually going to migrate from being an employee into a business owner, and by talking about that out loud, I'm guessing, people was like, oh, well, when you do that, let me know and I'll be a customer.
Yeah, so it was along the lines of I was doing my hands-on work, and one of the reasons why I actually sort of transitioned, as well as personal reasons, is that I worked with so many people helping their body, helping them move better, but they all talked about how they were anxious, how they were stressed, how they were lacking confidence, how they were on medication, and I kind of thought, I don't feel like I'm doing the most I can here. So that was one of the things that also gave me a bit of a push.
Excellent. So you kind of recognised an added need, an added pain point in those customers. Interesting. That's really cool. So you were talking about the accelerator. Can you kind of deep dive on that a little bit more? It's 12-week accelerator, is it?
Yeah, so it essentially has a simple but for me profound idea behind it. I believe that everyone has a message to share. I believe we all have a lot of value that we don't appreciate, and I believe that we all have insights and leadership that we can share. But through a combination of fear, a lack of clarity, a lack of practice, and actually the time and space to do it, a lot of the time we retreat, we play safe, and actually we spend our time looking at other people thinking, oh wow, how do they do that? Rather than actually us going, you know what, I believe in myself enough to do this. The Accelerator is all about a combination of combining best practices in human behavior to dissolve the fears, the supportive relationship, so you feel like you're part of a group and you're doing it together, actual structures, so it's a methodical process, and bringing it all together with an online platform so you can do it at your own pace. It brings all of these together, and the purpose is for 12 weeks. It's a bit of a sprint, so that's the accelerator part. We're really asking you to put a bit of work in, and then after that you get to enjoy just expressing yourself, just being able to talk about what you love, because I think the best thing that we can do is get paid for doing and talking about what we love doing, but it takes a bit of practice.
Yes. I think I love your messaging there. Lean into being you, but it takes practice. So it's so much more fun when you can be yourself more. Yeah. I totally agree. Who do you think is your ideal customer for this, Danny?
This was definitely a journey for me to explore, because there's so many people that would just like to speak up and express themselves. I'm predominantly working at the moment with people in the health, fitness and well-being industry. So my background is as a physio, so I have quite a lot of extensive understanding of that. But at the moment on the program, we've got financial analysts, I've got a couple of teachers, we've got personal trainers, we've got therapists. So we've got an eclectic mix, I think is the word, but actually it's around promoting the healthcare message.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And so they're technical experts in their field, but they need to figure out a way of projecting that story, that message more. What do you think is the problem? So let's say one of our listeners is out there thinking, well, I'm a personal trainer, let's say, and what's the problem that you think that they're feeling right now that would make it an absolute no-brainer for them to reach out and have a chat with you, Danny?
The primary things that hold people back are a fear of making mistakes, a fear of being criticised, and a belief that actually if they go for it, it won't work for them. Now, all fears are things that we learn, and actually fear has a very methodical structure. It's not transient and nebulous like a lot of people imagine it to be. It has nuts and bolts, so we can actually break those down quite consistently. A lot of people imagine that people who are successful have just natural talent, but actually when you speak to them, they all say, oh, if you could see my first efforts, I cringe when I look back at them now. So when we combine breaking down fears with actually practice, it doesn't really matter where you are at the moment. You can move forwards in huge leaps just by applying those two principles.
100% agree with that, Danny. Growth mindset. Everybody can get better from where they currently are. Like that's an absolute, true fact. And one of the things that I'm trying to do with the JOD Pod actually is create a safe space for new entrepreneurs and new founders, almost to be their first podcast. So it's a happy space. It's we're not going to be asking really tough questions, and it's just a chance to shine a light on the good work that they do. So it's a really interesting. There's a Venn diagram there where we're trying to make the same change in the world. Definitely, that's so nice to hear. Are you ready for some quick fire questions, Danny?
Let's go for it.
What's your favourite app or SaaS product that you're using every day at the moment?
The one that holds everything together is without a doubt Google Sheets.
Interesting.
It's what I do with my daily planning, my weekly planning, my yearly planning, and my business planning. And a lot of my IP has been converted into digital assets in Google Sheets. So I use it for everything pretty much.
Wow, a Google Sheet master. That sounds incredible. Like, I use Google Sheets, but I very quickly run up against a brick wall. So maybe that's a conversation that we might be able to have one day. What's your most recommended book?
The most recommended book is The Values Factor by Dr. DeMartini. It's a beautiful mix of inspiring content, but then actually the how-to, like a step-by-step guide to actually finding where you've got your value and how you can use it to your advantage. It's something that I demolished the first time, but I dipped back into over and over for just little bits and pieces.
The best books are like that, aren't they? You know, you can read them once, but then you can dip into them. And I like the fact that you mentioned there that it's practical. You know, rather than just high level ideas, it's actually something that you can go and do. I haven't heard of that before, but I'll definitely check it out. Thanks for the recommendation. Who's your favourite YouTuber or podcaster at the moment?
I'm going to go with podcaster because I'm big on podcasts, and I'll go for Jason Greystone's Always Free. Lovely mixture of mindset, financial information, which is something I love to learn about, and it's in bite-sized chunks. So a little bit like the JOD pod, I like things that are quite short, concise, but actually give lots of value.
That's brilliant. I've not heard that one either. I will have to add that to my my podcast list to listen to. That's really interesting. I haven't heard of that. Jason Greystone. Who do you think is going to be the next Elon Musk or Denise Coates, the CEO of Beck 365?
This was a really interesting one for me to think about, and I went for Austin Russell. So his background is he learnt the periodic table when he was 2. He then started learning physics in his teens, and he was one of the first billionaires under 30. And his history is basically he was obsessed with optics when in his teenage years, and now he's working in lasers and things like that. So that was something that his story kind of resonates with me.
That's fantastic. I'm just geeking out on the fact that it's lasers.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, so anything to do with lasers has got to be pretty interesting. I haven't heard of that name again.
Nice.
That's a new one for me, but definitely someone to look up at. You know, lasers are the future. Everyone knows that.
Well, he knew it quite a while ago, apparently.
Brilliant. And Danny, where's the best place for people to find you online?
The best place is at my website, which is www.dannygreevescoaching.com. That's the best place.
Wonderful. There we have it. Danny is the founder of the Speak Up, Stand Out Accelerator program, a 12-week sprint designed to transform you into being confident, persuasive, and inspired to share your message. He managed to get his first customer by planning his transitional move from the world of work, taking referrals, and recognizing a new need in some of his existing customers. Danny's favorite app is Google Sheets, the glue that binds his business together. He's going to give me some coaching on Google Sheets, he's promised. His most recommended book is The Values Factor by Dr. DeMartini. He loves listening to the podcaster Jason Greystone, Always Free, a new podcast to me. He thinks that we should be keeping an eye on Austin Russell, an early billionaire under the age of 30, whose business surrounds lasers. Very inspiring. And you can find out more about Danny at his website, www.dannygreevescoaching.com. That's DANNYGREEVESCOACHING.com. Danny, thanks for joining us today on the JOD Pod.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for joining us today on the JOD Pod. To ensure that you don't miss any of these episodes and you don't miss out on any interviews with people just like Danny, make sure you subscribe. You know the deal. Hit that like button, bang the bell. And if you've got any questions for me or Danny about what he's doing, please drop them in the comments below. It'll help out this video, it'll help out Danny, it'll just bring a little bit of joy and happiness into each and every one of our lives. And hopefully you've been inspired by what Danny's been speaking about today, and that you want to step up and stand out. Go build something yourself and inspire the next generation. Thanks for joining us today on the JOD Pod. If you enjoyed this interview, why don't you check out some of these other interviews that we've done on the JOD Pod. More inspirational CEOs, coaches, entrepreneurs, founders and authors. I'm sure there's something here that will inspire you to build something new.